Everyone knows the promise of the story. A boy who never has to grow old, who can fly, who lives on an island full of adventure with no rules and no responsibilities, no bedtime and no consequences. It is presented as the ultimate childhood fantasy, and generations have envied him. But sit with it a moment longer. He never grows up, which means he never deepens, never commits, never belongs to anyone, and never remembers, because remembering would mean carrying something. The boy who cannot grow up cannot keep anything either, and a book written more than a century ago is far more honest about that cost than most people recall. That story is Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie, a work that has become so embedded in culture that its central figure is known to people who have never read a word of it. It follows a boy who refuses to age, the children he carries off to an island of endless adventure, and the girl who eventually chooses to return home and grow. Beneath its magic lies a surprisingly melancholy exploration of childhood, memory, commitment, and what is gained and lost in the act of growing up. From the start, the book studies the psychology of refusing to change. The central figure is not simply young, he has made a choice again and again to remain exactly as he is, and the author is unusually clear about what that choice costs. He cannot form lasting attachments because attachment requires continuity. He forgets his own adventures almost as soon as they end. He cannot be truly known because there is no accumulated self there to know. The story explores the difference between being young and being unformed. It invites a reflection worth holding. What in your own life have you refused to let change, and what has that refusal protected you from and cost you? The novel also explores the strange emptiness of endless adventure. The island is exciting, dangerous, and completely without meaning, because nothing that happens there has any weight. Battles are fought and forgotten, companions come and go. Nothing accumulates, nothing matters the next day, and so the excitement never becomes joy. The author shows that stakes are what make experience mean anything. The story examines how a life without consequence, however thrilling, cannot become a life. It raises a question that lands quietly. What in your own life matters precisely because it could be lost? A central concern of the book is memory as the foundation of a self. The central figure forgets almost everything, including people who loved him deeply, and the author treats this not as a charming quirk, but as the great tragedy of the character. He cannot be a friend because friendship is made of shared history. He cannot grieve because grief requires remembering. The story explores how a person without memory has no continuous identity at all. It invites you to consider how much of who you are is simply what you have chosen to carry forward. The novel also examines the girl who chooses to leave. She has every reason to stay: adventure, flight, freedom from every rule, and she goes home anyway, choosing growth, family, and the ordinary weight of a real life. The author presents this not as a defeat, but as the story's actual act of courage. The story explores how choosing to grow up is a braver decision than refusing to. It invites you to reflect on a moment when you chose the harder, realer thing over an easier fantasy, and what it made possible. There is also a deeply moving thread about the mother figure and the longing beneath the whole story. The central figure needs mothering desperately and cannot admit it, gathering children and stories and companions around him in a constant unspoken attempt to fill something. The author lets you see the ache under all the bravado. The story explores how the loudest refusal of need is often the clearest evidence of it.
It invites you to consider how the people around you might be expressing a longing they cannot say aloud. The structure of the novel, with its knowing, sometimes wry narrator who addresses the reader directly and occasionally lets slip something devastating, is essential to its effect. The author never lets the story become simple. He keeps interrupting the fun with an adult's awareness of loss, so the whole book is shadowed by the knowledge that childhood ends. The story explores how a tale told to children can quietly be aimed at the adults reading it aloud. It invites you to notice which stories from your own childhood have taken on a completely different meaning now.
There is also a rich symbolism in the shadow that gets detached and must be sewn back. A boy separated from his own shadow, chasing it, needing someone else to reattach it, is a striking image of a self that is not fully integrated. The author uses it early and lightly, but it colors everything after. The story explores what it means to be missing a piece of yourself that follows everyone else automatically. It invites you to consider what part of yourself you have left behind and might need help reattaching. The novel also studies the way adults become invisible to themselves. The parents in the story are gently mocked, distracted by respectability and finances and social standing, having lost the very capacity for wonder that their children still possess. The author is careful, though. He does not suggest that growing up requires losing that capacity. He suggests only that most people let it go without noticing. The story explores the difference between maturing and hardening. It invites you to consider what you have quietly stopped noticing since you became responsible for things. There is also an honest treatment of jealousy and possessiveness within the story's friendships. The characters around the central figure compete fiercely for his attention, and their loyalty is shot through with rivalry. The author does not sanitize this. The story explores how the desire to be someone's favorite can twist affection into something sharper. It invites you to reflect on how the wish to be chosen has shaped your own relationships. The emotional arc of the book moves from delight through adventure into an ending that is genuinely sad if you are paying attention. Time passes for everyone except one, and the author lets you feel the loneliness of the one who stays behind, while everyone he ever cared about grows, changes, and moves on without him. The story explores the isolation of being unable to travel forward with the people you love. It invites you to consider what it would actually cost to stay exactly as you are while everyone else keeps going. The book's deepest suggestion may be that growing up is not the loss of magic, but the price of love. To love someone requires being able to remember them, to change alongside them, to carry the weight of what happens between you. The central figure cannot do any of that, and so he remains, forever delightful and untouched and utterly alone. The author offers this quietly, without a lecture. The story explores the trade at the heart of every life, that depth requires accepting time. It invites you to consider what your own years have given you that no amount of staying young could. The novel also gives quiet attention to the way the island itself reflects the minds of the children who arrive there. It is described as a place that was already inside them, a landscape assembled out of their own imaginings, which becomes vivid the moment they land. The author uses this to explore how the worlds people escape into are constructed from what is already within them, so that even a fantasy reveals the person having it. The story examines how our escapes are never truly elsewhere. It invites you to consider what your own daydreams are built out of and what they quietly tell you about what you want or fear.
There is also a striking treatment of the adversary in the story, an adult figure obsessed with time itself, haunted by a ticking sound that follows him everywhere and terrifies him. The author sets this fear of time directly against the boy who refuses to acknowledge it, so that the story's two opposing figures are really two responses to the same fact. One denies that time exists, the other is terrified of it. Neither can simply live with it. The story explores how the refusal to accept time and the terror of it are more alike than they appear. It invites you to consider your own relationship with the passing years and whether you meet it with denial, dread, or something steadier. In the end, Peter Pan leaves you with a far more complicated feeling than nostalgia. It suggests that refusing to change protects a person from everything, including love, that memory is what makes a self, and that choosing the ordinary weight of a real life is the bravest thing in the story. A tale that reveals the loneliness hidden inside a childhood fantasy offers something that stays with you. Books aren't just stories, they're mirrors that help us understand ourselves better. Comment below with the book you would like explored next and the moment you realized that growing up had given you something you would not trade back. If this kind of thoughtful book analysis means something to you, consider liking and subscribing so more of it can reach you. This video uses AI-generated audio and visuals for educational purposes only. This is just one reader's personal thoughts and interpretations.